Hello everyone, welcome to the Mortuary. I am a mortician, and today I have a death metal albums for beginners video. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of people who want to get into certain genres of metal or just metal in general who don't really know where to start. And I thought this would be a fun way for me to make content about something that I love and something that I'm sure other people will love that will subscribe to as well. And maybe you'll learn some new things, maybe you'll learn a couple new bands, who knows. Before we do that, I want to apologize for my absence. You guys are very understanding. You know, I have a lot of shit going on in my life right now. It's a lot to take in. So I appreciate you guys for holding on. I always appreciate you guys. So let's get into this. So we're going to start with something that isn't death metal all the way. It's actually more thrash than it is death, but this is a good starting point for anyone who just wants to get their dip their toes into the water and test it out. And that is Sepultura's Beneath the Remains. I have two separate Sepultura albums. I have this and I have Arise. Arise is okay. I like that album a lot, but I always reach for Beneath the Remains. It's really catchy. It's hard not to get into because of the fact that it's very catchy. I wouldn't call it radio friendly or anything, because really most of these songs you would never hear on the radio. But it's much more approachable than something, say, like Mortician or Incantation. So this is a good place to start if you're just looking to try out death metal. Sepultura's early stuff, Morbid Visions, Schizophrenia, Beneath the Remains, and Arise. These things have more in common with thrash, but have kind of a crossover with death. I would call them more thrash than I would death, but they definitely have that death metal edge to them. So this is a good place to start. And that is the wrong CD for this. You do not want to jump right into that. You will melt your face off. So next, this is once again a very surface level band. Sepultura is very surface level. Everyone knows who Sepultura is for the most part. This is once again a very surface level band. Once again, this is for beginners. These are people who don't know what they're getting into, and this is a good way to show them. And that is Entomb's The Left Hand Path. This is once again a record that has a lot of catchy guitar riffs. You still have that groove that Sepultura kind of has, but it's kind of dumbed down a little bit, and it's a little more aggressive. The vocal style is definitely more aggressive than Max Cavalera's. And once again, this is just one more step into becoming into death metal. And going from these two, there's a lot of big difference. Once again, the mixing is even very different. The drum patterns are very different. On Entombed and a lot of OSDM or old school death metal. Some of them can be pretty catchy, like Obituary can be very catchy, but this is kind of the level where that catchiness starts to drift away and you get into more of a pounding, more aggressive style of riffing and drumming. And this is just a good place to start with that. Once again, Supposed to Rot has a really catchy intro riff and it keeps its catchiness the whole way through. So that's probably potatoes on my hands. That's probably the song I would recommend off this record to start with. And if you like that enough, you can probably try out the whole record because they're kind of along the same lines of catchiness and groove. Next, we kick it up a little bit more. This is where there is not really any groove. This is the point where you enter death metal and it becomes no nonsense. This is probably the point where it's probably, I wouldn't call this the most aggressive band on here, but this is kind of the once again a very surface level band. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Dying Fetuses, Descendant to Depravity. Once again, you lose a lot of that groove. This is the point where there's tons of tremolo picking, sweeping arpeggios and stuff. This is pretty much the most aggressive you can really get other than this next band. When it comes to surface level death metal, this is pretty hard. There's a lot of slams, which slamming can be groovy, and especially Dying Fetus, and on this record they have some pretty groovy slams, but the riffs themselves don't really have a groove to them. There's a lot of blast beats, which is basically very quickly hitting the snare, the hi-hat, and the kick drum. It's basically really, really fast. And it doesn't really let up all that often, except for the slams, which is basically, how do I describe the slam to someone who doesn't understand? I can't really use a breakdown, but you've probably listened to dubstep once or twice. You know when people talk about the bass drop, that's basically what death metal or slam metal's version of the bass drop. Everything that once was in the music, maybe the catchiness, maybe the groove, the tremolo picking, comes to a stop, and it's about pure aggression building. And Dying Fetus is the best at this, in my opinion. There are other people who might disagree with me. However, this is my list, not yours, to deal with it. But yes, great band, and a great album. Dying Fetus, Descend into Depravity. Now, this I don't really have an order for. Like, these three bands, this is probably the gradient. Like, this, you would go Sepultura, Entombed, and Dying Fetus, if you wanted to get a good scope of what death metal is for. But this is the point where there really isn't a gradient. This is me just recommending bands of like different subgenres of death metal. There's only a couple here because I wanted to keep this video kind of brief, but we could start with Tech Death, and that is with Origin's Antithesis. This is probably the most aggressive, the most non-bullshit, and probably the most abrasive thing on here. Maybe not lyrically, because there's definitely some stuff lyrically that's more abrasive here. But it's gotta be. It'll get your heart pumping really fast. It's just really quick. Once again, blast beats pretty much the whole way through. We went through what a blast beat was earlier. Blast beats the whole way through. There is no groove with Origin. They are in to destroy. It's all tremolo picking. They're sweeping arpeggios as fast as they fucking can, tapping like maniacs. It's about infusing death metal with the most technicality you can, hence the name techno death metal. So typically a lot of technical death metal bands will use a wide variety of guitar techniques in order to achieve a really crazy and aggressive sound. Now, there are some bands such as Cynic or Atheist who have more jazzy elements and as such kind of calm things down. However, I didn't want to bring out my vinyls for this. But Cynic and Atheist are definitely two bands that can do both. They have some really great bass solos, especially Atheist. And Cynic has way more jazz influence. So if you're like a dude who likes jazz and is trying to maybe dip his toes into this, you might want to start with Cynic because they have a very distinct jazz influence into them. Think freeform jazz bullshit, or freeform jazz fuckery. And basically you have Cynic or Atheist, especially on things like Elements and whatnot. A lot of people like to call, Atheist Elements and Jupiter as like Diet Cynic, because that's pretty much what it is. But this is just pure technicality. They are not at all concerned with making melodies. There is nothing melodic about this at all, ever. Next, oh my god, oh okay. I was like, there's already a crack in this, but now there isn't. And the next is Nunslaughter's Hell's Unholy Fire. This is where death metal becomes blasphemous. I could have picked like a Deicide record. I mean, I could have. A lot of people know Deicide, but I felt like it would be so fucking stupid to pick Deicide because of the fact that everyone's already probably heard of the band through a Blabbermouth article or some music article or something, and maybe check them out already. But Nunslaughter, I think, gets swept under the rug a lot when it comes to death metal conversations. I don't know why, but this record is just fucking great. Lyrically, is the biggest thing about this. If you're a big lyric guy and you're like, oh man, I don't understand what they're saying, this is probably one band you might be able to appreciate if you read along with the lyrics, which is another thing you might want to learn to do until you start to understand can discern the different words through the growls of death metal, is read through lyric sheet, which is a good tip. The Nunslaughter has this really weird rhyming thing going on. I'm not going to bring up any examples, but it's really unique and actually it's really fun to listen to. Think about like a like an 80s B or C slasher film. And imagine taking that, a B or C slasher film from the 80s, and basically reducing it just to lyrics, like just to music. That's what this would be. It's fast at times. It has grooves sometimes. It has some really nice grooves sometimes, actually. Lyrically, it's it's very playful. It's very funny. If you're into, like, maybe if you've ever seen Peter Jackson's Brain Dead and you find, gore can be funny, this might be something you find humorous, because there is kind of a humorous edge on the band, whether they wish to admit it or not. So this would be something I would recommend if you want to get something lyrically. Other things that might be interesting for you to get into lyrically, I mean, there's not really too much profound stuff. If you really want to get into, say, like, feel-good-esque death metal, there's a lot of bands in mellow death that would have lyrics that are more profound. Something like Insomnium is a good example, where they kind of have some pretty good messages in the lyrics. And it's not just about killing nuns or, taking over the universe with your alien race or whatever. You can look at bands like Insomnium or another one. What is that band? I actually did a review. I'll have to post it because I can't remember the name. Oh, Omnium Gatherum. That's another group that has some more refined lyrics in their music that might be worth getting into when it becomes death metal. Next, maybe you're already into metal, right? Maybe you're a dude who's already into metal. Maybe you listen to, like, heavy metal, maybe you like Judas Priest. Maybe you're a dude who kind of goes a little bit farther than that. Maybe you like Candlemass or something. Maybe you like doom metal. You would probably like something like Hooded Menace's Effigies of Evil. This is what is called death doom. This is basically taking all the aggressiveness, the lyrical themes and styles, excuse me, my nose is a little clogged, but the lyrical themes and styles and the aggressiveness of plain old death metal and combining it with the speed of doom metal, which if you're not very, if you don't know what doom metal is basically just take heavy metal, like you've probably heard, like Judas Priest, Breaking the Law or something. Just take something like that and just really, really slow it down, and it becomes the more hypnotic version of heavy metal. That's basically what doom metal is. And you blend that with death metal, and you get things like Hooded Menace. Great band. So yeah. And lastly, I had to pick a record that, like, I love. Like, I wanted to pick something, like, I could have picked any record, honestly. You guys know I have big love for a lot of my records. I don't know if I ever did my top favorite records, but this will probably be on there. Is Incantations, The Infernal Storm. This is probably, I don't even know how to describe this. It is, it's not death doom. It's like, it borderline teeter-totters on that line in a lot of ways, and if you ever listen to something like Anoint the Chosen, which is the first track off this record, you can kind of see why, with the slower tempos and the more they lean more on creating just very headbangable shit in the way that like a doom metal band would. But it's just such its own thing. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable calling them straight up death, and I wouldn't call them death doom either. They kind of occupy this really strange space, in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else agrees, and that's fine if they don't agree with me. But on this record in particular, that's how I feel. But it's one of my favorite CDs. I actually got to see them live, and they put on a great show, by the way. But yeah, this has been Death Metal for Beginners. Death Metal Albums for Beginners. I can't remember if I said Death Metal Albums for Beginners or Death Metal for Beginners, but it's kind of both. I hope this was informational or informative for people who might not be fans of the genre, and for people who might be a fan of the genre or trying to get into the genre. And for those that may be already into the genre, I hope that you enjoyed watching, as well as everyone else. So thank you guys for watching. Mortician, peace out.